this as an opportunity.
Why 2 Victoria landlords were allowed to hike rent by 23%, and the ripple of concern it's causing tenants province-wide. Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. The BC government is bracing against backlash for another project that is significantly over budget and past deadline. The Surrey-Langley SkyTrain extension is now a year later than promised, now with a completion date of 2029, and the price tag has ballooned by $2 billion, now totaling roughly $6 billion.
Surrey-Langley SkyTrain is a difficult, complex, large project. It's the first extension to the SkyTrain network south of the Fraser River in 30 years. So I would say to John Rustad and Kevin Falcon, where were you during your 16 years? You didn't build 1 millimeter of SkyTrain south of the Fraser.
Well, the province says significant market changes are behind the increased cost and timeline from what was first proposed in 2022. The leader of the BC Conservatives, though, is not impressed.
For both the people in Langley and the people of Surrey, this is a gut punch. You've got a government that has promised for years to deliver on SkyTrain expansion, on being able to provide better transit in areas that are desperately in need of it. I just find that completely unacceptable and just a horrendous way to be able to do capital projects in BC.
The NDP says major construction of the project is set to begin this year, and work has been underway already for months. 2 people have been airlifted to the hospital after a delicate mountain rescue in the Sea to Sky region. Squamish Search and Rescue says the pair was hit by falling rocks while climbing the Chief midday. Crews mobilized a helicopter longline rescue to get those injured climbers off the mountain. The complex operation took about 4 hours in sometimes steep and dangerous terrain. The RCMP, BC Ambulance, and the Squamish Fire Department were all involved. It's unclear just how badly the 2 hikers were injured. Well, some property owners are starting to notice what may be an unintended consequence of BC's new housing policy aimed at creating more supply. It has to do with private covenants on properties that don't allow single-family homes to be replaced with multi-unit homes. Our Ted Pawson explains.
Here in Burnaby's Government Road area, 19 homes built in 1975. This one's for sale, with the potential buyer wanting to take advantage of the province's new housing density rules that would allow them to build a multiplex here. But there's a problem. There's a private agreement on these 19 properties. It's called a statutory building scheme. Put in place 50 years ago, it essentially ensures a specific type of structure on these properties, not the multi-unit dwellings the province is looking for. In a statement, BC's Housing Ministry says covenants like this on land titles were historically used for a variety of purposes, including limiting density. The province also confirms its new legislation doesn't supersede covenants or private agreements like the one here in Burnaby. It's also not offering much help in resolving them. At this time, the province urges homeowners in this situation to seek legal advice regarding their options. That's exactly what the sellers of this property have done, seeking an order from BC Supreme Court that would cancel the covenant. It would pave the way for the sale of this house, listed at more than $2 million. The petition argues the 1975 agreement put in place by a company that was dissolved 36 years ago is completely obsolete and gets in the way of building modern, much-needed housing, saying the statutory building scheme restricts utilization of 3150 Christdale to its current status, with a single-family residence, which is an underutilization of the property and is inconsistent with the legislative and zoning changes. The petition is putting the neighborhood in a tough spot, asking property owners to support their neighbor in trying to sell their home or sticking to the historical agreement, ensuring a single-family home neighborhood.
Trying to sell is a must for them, essentially. So if I were very much against it, then I'm not doing a favor for him. So I'm kind of at a loss. I'm at a crossroad between supporting him and my own opinion in terms of keeping this place to be a single-family zoning area.
There could be more conflict like this coming. Experts in property law say the problems of these types of covenants are pervasive.
I'll point out there are 2 million land titles in British Columbia. There are no doubt many thousands of these kind of charges that, of course, affect tens of thousands of properties.
Lawyers and even some city councillors are asking the province to step in here and use its powers to pass laws that would nullify certain covenants like this. That's so neighborhoods could fully realize the multi-unit, multiplex housing the province is looking for and not leave it up to individual owners to figure it out at their own expense. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Burnaby.
A recent ruling by BC's residential tenancy branch has led to a massive rent hike and massive reaction. The decision gave 2 Victoria landlords the go-ahead to increase rent by more than 23% over 2 years. The reason? Their mortgage payments had risen thanks to higher inflation rates, and the landlords were able to prove their financial situation was no longer sustainable.
This is the first rental property that these landlords have purchased. They purchased in October of 2021 at a variable mortgage rate of 1.9%, and in recent years it's shot up. The argument that mortgage rates have been steady and that they expected that rate to continue into the future doesn't really hold up to me.
BC's housing minister has asked staff to review the ruling. The Tenant Resource and Advisory Centre, meanwhile, calls it unfair and wants the minister to overturn it.
I hope that he moves quickly because, as I said, a lot of landlords are maybe eyeing this as an opportunity, and it's hard to make retroactive laws. So, yeah, my hope is that they address this with speed.
They're concerned this case will set a precedent for a slippery slope that could see more landlords looking for ways to spike rent. Well, the families of 2 teenagers who struggled with drug addiction are suing the provincial and the federal governments over BC's Safe Supply program. As Katie DeRosa explains, they can't claim government-supplied regulated opioids fueled their children's addictions, one of whom is now dead.
Denise Fensky says her daughter, Emily North, began experimenting with drugs at age 14. She started with Dilaudid, known on the street as Dillies.
She was doing dillies in her room at night by herself. And at that point, I knew we were in so much trouble.
Dilaudid is the brand name for hydromorphone, the opioid that's prescribed to drug users as an alternative to deadly street drugs. Amelie is now 17, and Fensky says she's in treatment for addiction to fentanyl. Her friend, Camila Sword, was killed by illicit drugs in 2022. She was 14 years old. The girls' families are now suing the BC government and Health Canada. They allege the province has been negligent in its Safe Supply program, failing to warn people about the risk of prescription opioids. Fensky says her daughter's story illustrates the risk of diversion when hydromorphone pills are sold on the street, often to young people at rock-bottom prices.
I think it's created a lot of addicts.
Camila's father, Greg Sword, says his motivation for the lawsuit is simple.
Change. Our system is broken. Enough is enough. How many children do we need to lose to this policy that isn't working?
Premier David Eby did not directly address the lawsuit, but says he stands by the prescription opioid program, which he says separates people from toxic street drugs.
That our government will do everything we can to try to keep people alive so they have the opportunity and they have that moment of clarity to get into treatment.
BC Green Party leader Tanya Fletcher says she feels for the families of Amelie and Camila, but she says evidence from BC's coroner service shows prescription hydromorphone is a key part of addressing the toxic drug crisis. The epidemic is killing 7 people a day in BC on average.
Safe Supply is a form of treatment.
The case is being submitted as a class action lawsuit, but has not yet been certified by a judge. If that happens, BC Conservative MLA Eleanor Sturco says she's confident other families will join. Sturco has been a staunch critic of the government's Safe Supply program.
The more people who've been harmed by, the dangerously named Safe Supply, or by the failure to really protect people and warn them about the dangers of taking diverted drugs, I think that would be a good thing.
The Attorney General's ministry says it has not been served with a lawsuit and cannot comment on the case. The allegations have not been proven in court. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
An emergency support center is now open at Lionsgate Hospital for survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking.
One of the best parts about our program is that it's patient-centered and patient-guided. So each survivor's experience through the hospital will be a bit different depending on what they need, but is entirely dependent on what they choose.
The center first opened its doors in April for anyone aged 13 and older. Patients can arrive within 7 days of an incident. They don't need a parent or ID with them. Similar services are available at 3 other hospitals in Metro Vancouver, and advocates say services will expand again in the next year.
Salal Sexual Violence Support Center, this organization received funding to open our own integrated clinic, which we will open next year. And I think that having a combination of services within the hospital and within community organizations can be really beneficial for survivors.
Lionsgate will offer forensic services and examinations and will launch a 24/7 care unit by the end of the fall. Well, BC's lumber industry is urging Ottawa to fight harder in Canada's ongoing softwood dispute with the United States. Their calls come a day after the U.S. announced plans to nearly double duties on Canadian softwood lumber. As John Hernandez reports, wood manufacturers here say they're among those hit hardest.
This 2-inch will get taken and kiln dried to 10 to 12%.
Andy Riley will soon turn this pile of cedar into products like fencing and wood panels.
Our primary buyers are predominantly big companies in the United States.
He's shipped products south of the border for decades, but the cost of doing business keeps getting more expensive.
We would like to say we don't sell that much to the United States under the circumstances with the duty. The fact of the matter is that there's a big appetite for our products there.
Canada and the U.S. have butted heads over softwood lumber for years. Washington alleges the Canadian lumber industry, where provinces charge companies stumpage fees to harvest wood, is subsidized, giving Canadian lumber an unfair advantage over the U.S., where harvesters are charged market rates. Ottawa has long disagreed. Over the years, the U.S. has imposed duties on softwood lumber and plans to raise it from 8.05% to 14.5% later this month. The hike has manufacturers like Riley panicked. Even though he doesn't harvest wood, the duties will still apply to his products.
We buy lumber on the open market and pay the same price as everybody else. But then when we take that lumber to our plant and add value to it, we kiln dry it, we plane it, and then we sell it to the States, we don't pay the duty just on the lumber. We pay the duty on all of the manufacturing and all of the trim loss and whatever profit and freight's there.
Riley represents dozens of other small-scale manufacturers that he says are facing a tough road ahead. Industry leaders say the hike's impacts will be vast. About 100,000 workers in BC rely on the sector.
And this is just adding to the cost of shipping lumber to the U.S., so it's going to impact production, it's going to impact workers and communities that depend on the forest sector.
Economics challenging an already struggling industry, estimated to have lost about 10,000 jobs last year.
There's going to be a high casualty rate, and there already has been.
Provincial and federal leaders say they are considering international litigation as this long-standing dispute rages on. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
We'll talk about a big rescue. Kayakers off Vancouver Island came to the rescue of 2 humpback whales that had somehow become tangled together in fishing gear. It could have been a dangerous situation for both animals, if not for the 5-hour rescue. Check it out.
Well, at first it was sad to see the whales because we saw pretty quickly they were entangled. As my sister was saying, why are they so upset? And then we right away saw that they were trailing the prawn trap, or at least one of them. And that made sense then because we heard a lot of trumpeting, the tail slapping, them swinging really close to shore. And then they were out of sight, and my sister said, let's call the Coast Guard. And I said, well, there's actually a special phone number we have to call right away. It's the whale response line.
We really took our time with the drone to get a real good idea of the configuration and how the animals were working kind of with each other but against each other. They were pretty agitated. We decided to put a working line kind of on the loop between the 2 animals, and not knowing exactly how they would react, because whenever you add drag to an entangled whale, they react. They don't like that. and then adding that extra drag within 20 minutes. So the whole thing was about 5 hours of working with the animal. It all came off, which was just unbelievable.
We need these whales. They're doing a lot of really good work for us, and not just in terms of economics, but they're like fertilizing this ecosystem and allowing for the capture of carbon. These are wonderful, positive stories of ambassador whales, but it has to be that we realize that for every whale that is detected with an entanglement, there are many others who are not. And it has to be about prevention, reducing the overlap, getting rid of like the gear that's drifting around in the ocean that can entangle again and again.
We were all very, very lucky. We were in the right position at the right time to be able to help those whales.
Well, still ahead, 1 year ago, a destructive wildfire tore through West Kelowna. After the break, we look back at what the community went through and speak with the chief who led the firefight. Stay with us. Welcome back. 1 year ago today, the McDougall Creek wildfire ignited about 10 kilometers north of West Kelowna. Within 48 hours, it spread fast and furious, jumping Okanagan Lake. Tens of thousands of people were forced to leave their homes. The flames wound up destroying nearly 200 structures. And now, a year later, people are still rebuilding and looking to fire smart their properties.
This year has been just emotional roller coaster for us. Dealing with insurance claim and all the time fighting back and trying to prove what we had, and yeah.
It is definitely a marathon, and I can understand the stress that goes on. You know, you do every year pay your insurance and you think everything is fine and you don't think you're ever going to use it. But then when you do, it's a sudden education.
More than 500 firefighters battled that blaze for weeks. West Kelowna's fire chief says even a year later, it's tough for many to come to grips with the loss, while also acknowledging all that was saved.
We, see the scars on the mountains when we come to work, and the people who lost homes are never far from our minds. The 13 firefighters in the Wilson's Landing Fire Department next door to us here who lost their homes, literally watched them burn. We think about them every day as well, but I also tell the men and women of my fire department that the focus on this story also needs to be what was saved. Thousands of homes saved and no lives lost. That was a major milestone.
You're looking at a live shot of the Georgia Viaduct with Science World in the background. Well, the sun and heat made a return on the South Coast today, but how long will that last? Your long-range forecast is coming up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC is proud to be the exclusive media partner of the 36th Annual Vancouver Queer Film Festival, September 11th to the 22nd, featuring 97 films from 25 countries. For festival tickets, visit outonscreen.com/VQFF and never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And Darius Madavi is here with our first look at the forecast. Darius, I managed to get in some beach time earlier today, and you really felt that humidity.
Oh, yes. It's been a humid one. Tomorrow the humidity will drop, and then it's coming back up on Saturday. So maybe a bit of a humid one there, but there should be some sunshine. Seems like the clouds are going to be clearing out, especially on the lower mainland, but also for much of the island over the next few days at times. But overnight Saturday into Sunday, that'll be our rainy and quite cloudy period. So we'll take a look at that. But first, some more lightning activity in parts of the province. So we're much calmer than we were earlier this week, but not as calm as yesterday. Still lots of lightning in parts of the south, especially around Revelstoke and just north of there. Tomorrow we are expecting another area of concern, especially including the area around Kamloops. So this area is expecting some very high winds along with that thunderstorm activity tomorrow. So that is seeming likely, but far from certain as these thunderstorms tend to be. Now, the fire danger has continued to climb back up in the south once again, remaining low in the northeast for now. Now, we are getting some precipitation down in the southeast tomorrow, so a little bit of good news there. We'll take a look at that in a second. But in terms of the smoke forecast, still lots of haze across the province, but because of the changing weather system, less of that is going to be coming down to the surface. So the surface smoke will be a lot more localized, despite still that widespread haze for the top half of the province, north half of the province. Now, as promised, the rain first. Down here in the southeast, lots of rain activity happening tomorrow. Plenty of widespread showers. All of that not necessarily coming with thunderstorm activity for a change. So that is good news and some decent rainfall coming there. Overnight Saturday into Sunday is when we get it here on the south coast. Plenty of rain for Vancouver, maybe 5 to 15 millimeters, and a decent amount for parts of the island as well. And that's going to continue tracking north up to the central coast, and then it's going to be moving off. Now, for now, it seems like that low is going to be staying in place even after that system passes through, but that could change. We may see that shift back into some sunnier weather, but for now, it seems like those the cloudier, showery weather is here to stay. Temperatures, though, they are remaining fairly bang on seasonal over the next few days, but if you're on parts of the coast, especially around Whistler, up the sea to sky, those temperatures will be a bit below seasonal for a while, especially as we get into early next week, before maybe rebounding towards the end of next week. In terms of that low, still off the coast, going to remain there for quite a while, anchored off the south coast of Vancouver, BC, sorry. And then across the province, still plenty of sunshine, but notice no real sunshine down here. That's where we get that showery activity. And for much of the southern parts of the province, lots of thunderstorms still, so especially watching that area around Kamloops, and lots of smoke up in the northeast as well. And then, as promised, still some sunshine, but coming in and out with that cloud. So probably a more balanced forecast than we've had in recent weeks, honestly.
And we'll squeak out that Sunday with some sun while we can. I mean, the Saturday.
Yes.
Got it. That's the day I have a barbecue. Perfect. Okay, thanks, Darius.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for this Thursday, August 15th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app. And of course, you can always find us online. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.